are also going up. So all this is a biggest challenge, and the speakers for today will give us a little bit more idea or insight that what is required from all of us, and definitely will guide us and will guide our students and the other people who have joined this, that in what direction we should be going. Professor Shannon Olson had said that science helps us measure, access, and analyze our planet, and technology can help us to live better in world. This situation is most apt at this time. We really have to do that. Are we going in a right direction or not? Are we not abusing our infrastructure, our planet? So this is a time for us to analyze. 1 year we have gone through, and this year also we don't know. There is a lambda 1 variant. Now government is now in Maharashtra, they said that we are not going to change from the level 3 because of the quite a few cases have come from the lambda 1 variant, delta 1 variant. Lambda is also coming up. So in that case, it is a need of an hour to analyze, and to, after analyzing, developing a technology which will help us to go further and survive in this situation. So in this pandemic, it is the enormous uphill is in every possible aspect of our life, is land, life, and livelihood, which also offers us opportunity to pause and rethink. Very, very important for all of us. Rethink. It is not thinking we are always doing. Rethink that how we are going to go ahead, how we are going to move further. What are we going to change? What we are going to change? Now, in this time, also, we all have thought, we all have survived with the limited requirements. Can we continue this? I think we will really give a tribute to our planet. Minimum usage of certain things, plastics, etc. Environment is the biggest challenge. And with this, we are the human can only change themselves at any age. So now it is time for all of us to rethink and change ourselves, change our lifestyle, change our thinking, and appreciate the planet, appreciate our healthcare people, appreciate our scientists, and appreciate our entrepreneurs who are working day and night. With that, I will not take much time because all the participants are eager in listening to these stalwarts. Thank you, all of you, to participate. And this will be, and students, this will be a fantastic way of learning in a different way. Learning in classroom is not enough in this time situation. I think everyone has realized that. With that, I again welcome all our esteemed guest speakers, and thank you very much for sparing your time and giving your valuable thoughts to this audience. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's always a pleasure to listen to your inspiring words. Thank you so much for always supporting us in all our endeavors. We also have with us today Dr. Anjali Patkar, Vice Principal Commerce. Madam is the proud recipient of the prestigious Savitribai Phule Adarsh Shikshika Puraskar. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today to support us in our endeavor. Dr. Mahesh Bhagwat, Vice Principal Arts Faculty, couldn't join us today due to some prior commitment. Sir sends his warmest wishes for a successful symposium. It's now time to welcome and introduce our first expert presenter for the day, Dr. Subodh Bhatnagar. I now invite the voice and face of the Department of Biochemistry, RUSA Nodal Officer and the Head, Department of Biochemistry, Dr. Nupur Mehrotra, to please introduce our first resource person for the day.
Thank you, Sarah. A warm welcome to all our delegates, our participants who have joined in to this national symposium. It's indeed a moment of great pride and honor for me to introduce you to Professor Dr. Bhatnagar. Professor Dr. Bhatnagar is a very well-renowned scientist in our country. What I will present now is a very tiny glimpse into his illustrious career. Sir's achievements are multiple, running to close to 61 pages. The very reason I said what I will be talking about is a very tiny glimpse into his career. Professor Dr. Subodh Kumar Bhatnagar is founder and Secretary General, Society for Plant Research. He is the former Dean of College of Biotechnology, Sardar Vallabh Patel University of Agriculture and Technology, Meerut, India. Sir is an ardent researcher and has multiple achievements into his pocket. To mention a few, Sir is fellow recipient of MPS France, the FBS, the FLS London. He is the proud recipient of the Varsinic Award, and the most recent in his belt is the Pearl Laureate Lecture and Lifetime Achievement Award. We first were introduced to Dr. Bhatnagar at the NAC visit in 2016, where he was a peer member. And like Mitibai, he has been on the team for NAC accreditation throughout the country. He is member of the Project Evaluation Council, CCRAS, Ministry of Ayush, member of the Research Advisory Council, Uttarakhand Council of Biotechnology, member Research Council, CSIR, NML, Jamshedpur, a very proud recipient of the INSA Costed Visiting Fellow, the Indo-Greece Visiting Fellow, and he is the founder and Secretary General, Society of Plant Research. He is the editor-in-chief of Vegetos. Vegetos is an international journal of plant research and biotechnology. It is a multidisciplinary journal which is published quarterly, a peer-reviewed journal focusing on dissemination of researches being done for conservation of plant biodiversity, climate, environment, sustainable agriculture, and takes into the foray the use of latest technological tools for increasing the production. Under the banner of the Society for Plant Research, Dr. Bhatnagar has led the organization of multiple conferences. The recent series that he's been associated is with the National Educational Policy 2020, wherein he's trying to create awareness about the same to the general public. Sir has completed projects more than 50 lakhs, the grants which he has received from CSIR, UGC, ICR. That's really a very big amount which he has used for research. To Sir's credit are more than 125 research papers in international and national journals. He has authored more than 20 books. He has been honored with invited lectures, which are more than 50, holding life membership of 12 associations. As I said, he has organized multiple conferences, seminars close to the number 50, and guided more than 25 students for their doctoral degree. This is a voluminous service to science and to academics a 45-year service which sir has rendered in this field. It's indeed a pleasure to have you, sir. Welcome, and I request you to please address our dear students, sir. So you'll need to unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nupur, for the introduction, to which I don't know whether I deserve or not. But nevertheless, these were your sentiments and the information you gathered from different sources. So I thank you very much for introducing so well. I have been told that this conference, Challenges of 21st Century, is being organized to educate the undergraduate and postgraduate students of your college and surroundings. Beside the faculty, we as a teacher are always in the state of learning. So I will treat everybody as a student, including myself, because we keep on learning throughout. And for this conference, I am particularly captivated because a few years back, when I visited a very prestigious institution for NAC inspection as member coordinator, I found that the college is being run meticulously by the scientists who are really devoted in whatever department they are or whatever duties they have been assigned, and they are producing quality students, as was seen during the interaction of alumni, where so many very prestigious personalities were present. So I'll not take much time, and I'll take the permission of Dr. Nupur Mehrotra to share my presentation.
Please, sir. So we've gone on live on YouTube also, so that the larger number of people can get benefit from your deliberations, sir.
Is it visible, Dr. Nupur?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Should I continue with your permission?
Sir, please,
and
sir,
with the
please,
permission of Dr. Desai. So, thank you very much for providing me an opportunity to interact with my young friends of Mitibai College, a prestigious institution in Mumbai, and not only in Mumbai, across the country. I take privilege of speaking on biological sciences in toto solution for a healthy world. In fact, when we talk about the healthy world, what do we mean? Because I am a person, and majority of persons will be who might have witnessed the time of 20 years or 25 years back. The things were entirely different. The definition for a healthy individual were different. But in the present scenario, the definition for a healthy individual, healthy world have changed a little bit. Perhaps because we have started growing, we have started developing from a developing world or developing country to a developed country. And in the process, we lose so many things. Because if you are a gainer, you are a loser at the other end. So ultimately, when we are progressing, when we are growing, we are also losing some very important things. And with the help of this presentation, I would like to enlighten a little bit, to the best of my capacity, that what is the healthy world? How will we define healthy world? A few points I have identified. It means a healthy food we should have, the agriculture produce, the food security, the best food security we have in our country, then biofertilizer and cyanobacteria for developing better crops, a pollution-free green energy, because we are developing, we are using energy from fossil fuel, but we have to look after that this fossil fuel energy is creating a lot of pollution, and we have to opt for green energy. Then only we can have the healthy world. Then healthy environment means all the natural resources we should keep intact, means they should be conserved in a better way, like water, air, soil, entire flora and fauna. Then the medicinal plants for healthy youth means as soon as we see that the population is multiplying with a tremendous growth, it is not a good sign for a healthy country, of course. And for they keep them healthy, we require medicinal plants. And the flora of medicinal plant is limited. So we have to keep them multiplied so that we can provide maximum Ayurvedic medicines, maximum natural medicines to the entire country so as to keep them healthy. Then comes the biotechnological intervention. Biotechnology is a science, as everybody knows, which is a quick science. You can call it as this biotechnology means money. If you are multiplying anything in 1 year time by using biotechnological interventions, you can multiply it 4 times a year, 3 times a year, 2 times a year, means the growth can be enhanced by using various tools. Apart from the medicinal use, as we have seen in the recent time during COVID-19 pandemic. Then the last point which I would like to mention is Vikas versus Vinash. What logic we are going to use? Whether we are going towards the real Vikas or we are going to the real Vinash. So these points we shall be discussing one by one. Of course, I will try to finish up within the permitted time of 45 minutes, but I may kindly be excused if I exceed a little bit while talking about, because teachers have the tendency of speaking more, listening less. Then the first point we want to mention is healthy food and agriculture produce. Now you see that it is the quote by Professor Amrit Sen, who was a Nobel laureate in 1998. भारत से अकाल टला है लेकिन भूख आज भी जारी है. Means we are not facing that there is a turmoil in the entire country. Of course, we have improved a lot at various fronts, but still there are so many persons, there are so many children who are still very hungry and they are in want of food. Of course, we might be having good food, we might be having fast food, or we might be exposed to a better environment. But can you look down to those communities, those children who are still starving, who are looking towards us that they should get at least 2 times food and they should be able to fill their tummy. Now I go back to the time of Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri, the then Prime Minister of India. I would like to quote a little incident when Mr. Lal Bahadur Shastri, he was receiving wheat from US, the wheat which was with the extracted everything, and this wheat was thrown into the sea by America, and he had to spend a lot of money on transport to throw it back or to dump it into the sea. India was starving at that time, so Lal Bahadur Shastri asked the American government not to throw it inside the sea and dump it over there. Better we shall pay a little bit of fare for transportation, and better you give it to us and we will feed at least our starving population. And that grant was called as PL 480, PL 480. That was the grant when red colored wheat was imported by India from US, and at that time also several other food products were also imported from Denmark. Anyway, that wheat was a cause of gastroenteritis and so many other problems to our natives. And ultimately what happened that we had to focus on agriculture. Lal Bahadur Shastri, he made a call that on every Monday, entire country will be on fast. And you will not believe that even the tea shops were closed during Monday. That was the call of a national leader who was very simple in living and very strong in communicating his voice to the masses. Then when we come to the agriculture, which is the main concern for giving us food, there are certain threats to agriculture. Number one is reducing water resources for irrigation. Every day we are making exhaustive use of drinking water, and ultimately the water resources are receding. You will not believe that the underwater level and the amount of groundwater is receding day by day, and the time is not far, then the next world war will be for the use of water, and we shall be fighting among each other for want of drinking water. So for irrigation, water is not available. Then we are always in the habit of increasing using chemical fertilizer and biocides, which are causing biomagnification and which are causing different types of diseases to the human beings, either by consumption of the food materials, fruits, or other things on which the chemical fertilizers have been used or biocides have been used, and they have not been removed properly. So they are entering into our system and are causing various types of diseases. Then because of the growth, as we told that the growing nation is now becoming a grown nation. So we are developing so much of cities, urbanization, and because of which the agricultural land is reducing day by day. Another very important thing is that the younger generation from villages do not want to continue with the agricultural practices. And for want of various jobs or better job opportunities, they are migrating from villages to the cities, and ultimately the farmers, they are not having the next generation to look after the agriculture. Another apprehension is suspected high cost, low profit concept in agriculture. The farmers think that whatever investment they are making in agriculture, they are not getting a proper return of it. Then the traditional farming and poor deviation means the farmers, if they are growing sugarcane, then they do not want to deviate to other crop production. If they are growing wheat, then they do not want to deviate to other profit generating crops or their production. Then higher debts means the farmer, they are getting loans from the banks, and because of the excessive interest amount or because of non-payment of loans, because of low cost of their production, they are committing suicide, which is a very, very serious matter, and the government had been looking after it. Now you can see that there are certain areas in the country where you will find prosperous farmers, and there are places where drought and flood, they brought the farmers under distress. And for meeting out all these challenges, a National Commission on Farmer, means NCF, was constituted in 2004 under the chairmanship of a renowned agriculturalist, Professor M.S. Swaminathan from Chennai. At that time, Professor Swaminathan was a former director of Indian Agriculture Research Institute. I will talk about it a little later. And he was assigned that you kindly take over the production of food crops, staple crops for the masses, in collaboration with Dr. Norman Borlaug. And with Norman Borlaug, as you might have seen in the earlier slide, Norman Borlaug and Professor M.S. Swaminathan, they took up this challenge, and ultimately first green revolution came into being. Then the government entrusted Dr. Swaminathan again in 2004 to find out that what are the problems, what are the trouble, or what are the troubleshootings with the farmers, why they are committing suicide, what are the drawbacks because of which they are not able to survive much. So they submitted their report. We are not going in details of all these things. This Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, he was the chairman of National Commission on Farmers, and he made following recommendations: causes of farmer distress, irrigation, as I discussed, productivity of agriculture, that should be increased. Credit and insurance, their crop should be insured for any type of natural disaster. Then food security should be there. Prevention of farmer suicide, they should not commit suicide, rather they should be kept at ease by providing maximum facilities. Competitiveness of farmers means they should be in competition with each other so as to develop better crops and to add to the prosperity of the country. They should have better employment and bioresources. These were the recommendations. Then green revolution has increased food production, no doubt, but the application of advanced technique is poor. It means the farmers are still using the conventional techniques for their agriculture. They are not utilizing the advanced technique which came into being by different scientists all over the world. Now, as compared to green revolution, now it is much stable. Green revolution is much stable, more beneficial to farmers and is environment friendly. What do we mean by gene revolution? Means we are manipulating genes in order to give better crop to the farmers. Of course, it is a debatable point, and there are so many persons who might be favoring the gene revolution or a biotechnological revolution, and other people, they are disowning the gene revolution or biotechnological revolution by giving so many pros and cons and so many points in favor and disfavor. We are not going in details of it right now. Then crop production under biotic and abiotic stress. Because with the population increase, we are finding so many types of biotic stress and abiotic stress. You can understand very well that the stress which is caused by the living beings is biotic stress, and the stress which is caused by non-living things is a abiotic stress. So if we are developing such type of crops which can fight against biotic stress and abiotic stress, then we can increase population or agricultural population and can give prosperity to the country. Now, biotechnology has tremendous potential of managing the issues of food security more effectively through gene revolution. As we were discussing, we will give a little bit detail in the later slides. Now, after green revolution, we have developed a white revolution in India, and you know that milkman of India is Varghese Kurian. And white revolution means we should be self-sustainable as far as milk and milk products are concerned. And Amul, the taste of India, you can see, and everybody is using it because it was introduced by Varghese Kurian, who is known as the milkman of India. Then the food security mission came into being, because whenever we go for consuming various types of foods, of course we can afford, therefore we are visiting different very highly paid restaurants, we are utilizing food, we are consuming them lavishly. But do you understand that how much amount of food is wasted? How much amount of food that can be utilized by the poor people? How much of amount that can be recycled to make some type of biofertilizers? How much of food can be better developed by the scientists? So these are certain points through which we need to focus a little bit. Drip irrigation means we can consume water by providing water only at the root of the crop instead of spraying it throughout the field. So by drip irrigation, we can conserve a lot of water. Then organic farming by utilizing the normal organic fertilizer instead of chemical fertilizer, because chemical fertilizer, they are making the fertile soil sterile. They are making the fertile soil ooser, means not fit for agriculture. Therefore, we can go for organic farming. Then we can have the improved seeds by using so many techniques. You can see in the a wholesale market of vegetable, you can see a lot of vegetables are wasted in our kitchen. Lot of vegetable waste are there. A lot of parts of the vegetable which are not consumed by us, they are they are thrown away, so we can utilize them. And for biofertilizer, we can have various types of biofertilizer. Everybody is aware, particularly the microbiologists, they know very well about it. So, and the students of microbiology, they are also knowing about Azospirillum, Pseudomonas, phosphobacteria, rhizobium, azotobacter, and so on and so forth. Now we have to proceed for green fertilizer. Now I would like to mention that the green fertilizer includes cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria, you can call them as blue-green algae, which are the prokaryotic forms. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see azolla. It is a pteridophyte with the cyanobacterial contents, it means nosto azolae and anabina azolae in the root of azolla. It is also being used as a biofertilizer at Indian Agriculture Research Institute. And the green fertilizer or cyanobacterial fertilizers were used by one of my PhD students, Rizwana Tabassum. So what she did, I would take 1 minute to explain her work a little bit. She identified cyanobacteria. Normally we understand that all cyanobacteria or the blue-green algae, they can be used as biofertilizer. But this is not fair, because when we use cyanobacteria, there are certain cyanobacterial strains which are antagonistic in their properties. Antagonistic, you understand that there are some certain colleagues in our institutions who may work for themselves, but they antagonize others so that they should not work. So this is the antagonistic property. Means they are working for themselves, but they are not permitting others to work. So there are certain cyanobacteria which are working for themselves, but they are not permitting other cyanobacteria to fix atmospheric nitrogen, and ultimately they are hampering nitrogen fixation and they are hampering the biofertilizer activity. So she identified those cyanobacteria which were hampering the others' activity or which were antagonistic in their property. Then we should have a pollution-free green energy, as I was talking about. Now, right from 2008, we had been making attempt to motivate several persons to go for green energy. And through Algae Biofuel Summit, we organized 4 international summits on algae biofuel to introduce that algae has the potential of producing biodiesel, and it can be a possible substitute to the fossil fuel, and in future we can use it as a green energy which cannot cause pollution or which can increase carbon sequestration or can improve our environment. So during a conference in Ireland, I happened to visit the place where General Secretary of International Conference on Ecology was there. Then this is the man on whom you can be proud of, Professor Michael Borowiska and Dr. Navid Mehmani. They are from Murdoch University, who developed biodiesel for the first time from algae. And I was fortunate to meet Dr. Borowiska. He is the pioneer in algae biofuel or in developing algae biofuel. And still, by the grace of God, he is surviving and we are in touch with him for various project work. Now, when we talk about algae biofuel, we should also understand the biotechnological intervention. That there are so many algae which grow in polluted water conditions or which grow in certain other conditions. So we have to identify the type of gene which is present in cyanobacteria and is responsible for fatty acid synthesis through which biodiesel can be produced. So the DNA manipulation to increase oil production has been done in algae, and some shallow water ponds or shallow ponds which are growing algae, the polluted water ponds which are having algal growth or which are having various algal strains. So these algal strains are being taken into laboratory and their genetic manipulation is being done so that they can be converted into a fat producing algae through which biodiesel can be produced. Now we come to the next point, is healthy environment. Means natural resources like water, air, soil, flora and fauna, they should be conserved. As I talked about that water, there are in the earlier days we used to take water from the hand pump and or from the wells. Now we have started buying the natural resource which has been provided by nature. We are taking bottled water And do you know that for bottled water, which are getting for 10 rupees or 12 rupees a bottle, this water is being taken out from the underground water by the multinational companies, maybe the Indian companies or the companies from outside, but they are taking water from the soil, and we are not in the habit of harvesting water. So when water is not being harvested at many places, and the water resources which are present under the soil, they are being consumed for being taken up as a bottled water. Of course, we are in habit of taking it because of the contaminated water. But this is a serious issue, that either we should recharge the soil water level, or we should be in the habit of harvesting water. Rainwater harvesting should be there, and likewise the air should also be very pure. You might have witnessed during last 2 years that the natural air which we were getting, which we were provided free of cost by Almighty, they have been destroyed by destroying the oxygen producing trees, and we are rushing towards the artificial oxygen in the form of cylinders. We are buying it for 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 rupees. We never cared for the oxygen which was provided to us free of charge by the God. So we have to think as an agriculturalist, as a botanist, as a biotechnologist, as a human being, that we should develop such type of plants which are capable of producing more oxygen and consume carbon dioxide, rather than rushing towards the artificial oxygen or the oxygen through cylinder. You know that in Japan, like telephone booth, they are having oxygen booth. So whenever they move 2, 3, 4 kilometers, they go to the oxygen booth, they consume oxygen fit for their living, and then they move forward. So this situation should not come in India. Otherwise, it will be a disaster and we shall not be able to manage it. Soil is being contaminated. Soil is the soul of agriculture. Soil is being contaminated by the spray of different type of chemical fertilizer, pesticide, herbicide, because of which the flora and fauna of the soil is being destroyed. So this is a very serious issue, of course. I have not included any slide for it, but these are the issues which are which everybody knows, and they should take care of it. Then we come to the medicinal plant for healthy youth. Now you can see that microalgae, because in the earlier time nobody was bothered about algae, and everybody was thought that it is a kai or cheval which can be of no use. But this is a time when algae has become of paramount importance, and a large number of chemical produced, a large number of food materials, a large number of cosmetic products are being developed. If you will go on Google, you will find that the algal research is of paramount importance the worldwide, and a large number of scientists are working on algae on various aspects. Polyunsaturated fatty acids, they are very rich in algal components, and they are nutritionally and pharmaceutically valuable and are being used for making various medicines. Microalgae can accumulate oil in the form of triacyl glycerol, which is a reservoir for PUFA. It can store PUFA, and PUFA can be used for various purposes. As you know that algae are the primary producer, because these are the microorganisms which can utilize maximum solar energy, or which can utilize maximum amount of sunlight and can convert it into carbohydrate and fatty acids. So and the biomass of algae is also very high. In chlorella, about 80% biomass is present as compared to its overall volume. So chlorella was an algae which was taken by the astronaut as a food material. You can understand the potential which chlorella or a unicellular algal form has. Now it has got astaxanthin as red ketocarotenoid, which is another a very important chemical which is extracted from green algae, Hematococcus, and lot of work is being done the worldwide, and we are also having a good association with those scientists, particularly in Israel. A scientist from Israel 1 year back, before corona pandemic, she visited us 2-3 times, and we are in process of forming a collaboration with Israel Alga Technology. Then lutein is obtained from Sandesimus. It is another algal form, and lutein is used to help in improving the degenerative human diseases like age-related macular degeneration or the muscular degeneration. Because as soon as we advance in age, there are a lot of tissues which keep on degenerating. We develop wrinkles on our faces, and nobody wants to have wrinkles on the face, and they want that it should be removed and should look as young as ever. You can see this is the utilization of algae. They are being used as the coating on their face in order to keep it healthy and to provide it proper nourishment. So algae is being used as a cosmetic product in so many countries worldwide. Now, everybody knows about mushroom. They are protein-rich medicinal plants. Maybe the Pleurotus or Ganoderma or other types of mushrooms. So these plants, they are being used and are cultivated as a cottage industry. This particular mushroom, it is Pleurotus. You can call it as button mushroom. So it is being consumed throughout the country. It is very rich in protein, and particularly during corona pandemic, the consumption of Pleurotus increased multiple times. Now, beside this, which I could not mention, is Ganoderma. Ganoderma is a mushroom which you can see on the tree trunks, old tree trunks. It is dark brown in color, and its powder is being used to fight against cancer. It is a very, very potential cancer therapy as far as plant products are concerned. In last 2 years, everybody, particularly in Mumbai, where your college is located, and in Noida, where from I am talking about, these were the hubs, or you can call it as these were the infection centers, or where the pandemic was more and more effective and dangerous. And it took so many lives of our nears and dears. It was a very painful time for everybody of us. But the plants, the medicinal plants, they are again of paramount importance, as you can see. Without going in details of the controversy recently developed between allopathy and Ayurveda and homeopath and this and that, because that is the political issue and we are not worried about it. But we should focus more on the utilization of plant products, which fortunately in most of the kitchens are present. Most of the ladies in India or Indian kitchen, they are utilizing these almost every day. And the immunity does not come in a day or two. If we are in the habit of consuming these products every day, along with our diet, then ultimately our immune system will be strong and the herd immunity will be there. And these type of viruses will keep on coming. First variant, second variant, third variant, and a large number of variants. We had been encountering these type of viruses for the time immemorial, and the people they have been fighting against. So one thing is that with the help of plant products, we have to focus more on our immune system rather than being terrorized or being under depression by these viruses. So just with the help of this one slide, I tried to explain that ashwagandha, anutel, tulsi, giroy, and all these things which we have been utilizing almost every day. Most of the people who believe in the natural resources, they might be utilizing it, and they were able to keep themselves away from any type of infiltration of virus by using these best practices. Now the biotechnological intervention, I don't know, Dr. Nupur, will you please tell? I am not taking much time.
We can have another 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, I'll just speed up and we'll conclude it. So by biotechnological intervention, we can see that this is aeroponic, which means we are developing tubers by utilizing aeroponic technique in air. This is the aeroponic technique where the underground plant vegetation can be grown, and it is being practiced. It was being practiced in my university where I worked for more than 10 years. Now you can see that the polyhouses are also there. This is the soil on the right hand side, where if we are growing vegetation, then the soil pollution can be reduced and the soil will become water rich. The beginning and growth of biotechnology started in 4000 BC when Egyptians discovered wheat. Then you can see step by step, Gregor Mendel came. He gave the laws of heredity. Then Watson and Crick, double helical model. Then other things were also there. Then plant genetics came into being, and finally the people, they started utilizing biotechnology. But there was an apprehension when the computer came into India in 1985 by the Prime Minister, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi from France. Incidentally, I was also there when Festival of India was organized in Paris. So I witnessed that very important event where the people used to ask that the India is so backward that they are not even having computers. Second thing, that what is Ganga in India? Whether it is a pond, it is a river, it is a well to which the people, they want to purify. What is that? So these were the two questions in French people, in the French community. And at that time, the computer was brought to India, and the people were under apprehension that a lot of people will become unemployed and will be on road. Likewise, there is a misconception about biotechnology that if the genes will be there, then they will, if they can harm the insect, then they can also harm the human beings. It is adding a gene through biotechnology is just like an app that you install in your phone and that works for that particular app, but that is not going to change the format of phone. If it is an iPhone, then it has to be an iPhone. If it is some other type of phone, that it will remain other type of phone. So the plant genetic engineering for the students, I wish to show this slide. Here we are having a traditional donor. It is a wild plant, and from which the traditional or desired gene is there. This is the commercial variety. We want to introduce this gene into it. Then this gene is kept into it. It is kept for acclimatization, and ultimately a commercial variety is developed. Then we develop transgenic. Transgenic means transfer of gene. We identify gene for desired trait, what type of gene we want to introduce. If we want to become disease-free, then we want to introduce a gene into us. Like we are taking vaccine, it means we want to take something into our body which can develop resistance in our system, or which can develop immunity in the body. So there are different copies of gene transfer into plant tissue, lab tests, this and that, and government agencies, and they finally approve it, and we go for the development of transgenics. You can see these are the transgenic genetically modified varieties. Here we are having an apprehension that these varieties are not good for health. But for last many years in US, these type of varieties are being consumed, and the people, they are not having any type of ailment. So this is beyond our expectation that if we are using transgenic varieties, then they are going to harm. Of course, Vandana Shiva is the strongest opponent of biotechnological techniques or tools, and on the other hand, Chengal Reddy is a very strong follower of biotechnological technique. To both of them, we are in touch, and we used to organize webinars on those issues, and we are trying to find out that what type of intermediate measures should be taken by the human beings. You can see that these are virus-resistant papaya. Instead of taking a virus-infected papaya, everybody would like to have a resistant papaya. Here is the herbicide tolerance. These plants are tolerant to various types of herbicides which are being used. Now, how can biotechnology add value to global agriculture? These are certain points with the help of which we try to focus. The cotton, genetically modified cotton, you are in Mumbai, and you can see that the farmers, they were largely benefited by the modified cotton or GM cotton, and they utilize. This is GM brinjal or eggplant. It has not been approved by the authority, by the regulatory body of the country for open multiplication, for open cultivation in the field for one or the other reason. This is BT corn. You can see that it has low mycotoxin, and because of low mycotoxin, this type of corn is being cultivated in US but not in India. These are the benefits of biotechnology. You can have that the post-harvest quality means if you are harvesting tomato, then it can prolong for long, because we are exporting tomato for to various countries. And if its post-harvest quality is improved, shelf life is improved, then we shall be able to get enough amount of foreign currency. So these are few crops which can be developed. Now, just like I would like to mention that one of my students, Dr. Atul Batra, he worked for his PhD by increasing shelf life in tomato, and it was a 10 days extension of shelf life in tomato. If we are harvesting tomato today, then for another 30 years it can remain as fresh as ever. So we can export tomato by and large to many countries where they can be utilized even after 30 days without any damage. And for these three types of genes were transferred, one from strawberry for thin skin, another for tobacco for disease resistance, and the third was from banana for delayed ripening. So these tomatoes, they were developed by him, and he was awarded PhD on this under my supervision. Are GM crops the answer to Indian farming problem? No, it is not a perfect cure for all, because we have to go one by one with the traditional agriculture and biotechnological practices. So we have to do both the things together. Now we come to almost last slides, Vikas versus Vinash. Whether we should go for such type of development which can bring disaster like this in Kedarnath, because water finds its way out. If we are stopping the way of water which is coming down from top hills, then ultimately we have to face this type of disasters. Because the people, they started building multi-storied and the hotels and the restaurant and guest house and so, and they stopped the pathway of the free-flowing river, and ultimately they had to face this disaster where thousands of lives were compromised. Kedar flood, you can see that the people, they were facing these type of disasters in Kedarnath, and again in Kashmir. They found that this type of developments were made. This is also Vikas. But whether we want to go for this type of Vikas where we can stop the pathway of the natural resources, we do not permit them to flow freely from one place to another, and we should construct various type of infrastructure into it. So ultimately, if we do like this, then what will happen? Unthoughtful development without conserving our natural resources, which with we are blessed, is like paving way to destruction. If we are development is not bad, because the developing country may go to become the developed country, but that should be thoughtful, and that should be taken into confidence. The environmentalists, the biotechnologists, the biologists, and other natural scientists, they should give suggestions, and these suggestions should be honored by the deciding authorities, so that the development and natural resource conservation should go side by side. And this is the last slide. Choose the best technology for better future. And with this, I thank you all very much for patient hearing. And I have great honor to Nupur Mehrotra for guiding me the time limit, and I hope that I could finish it within the permitted time. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. That was an excellent eye-opener. And it reminds me of Gandhiji's word, there should be enough for everybody's needs, not for the greed. That's what you have been talking about, Vinash versus Vikas. So just a few questions have come, ma'am. If you permit, can I ask a few questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we have this question that India has always come up innovative and cost-effective solutions, especially for farming, but the transfer from lab to land has always been a slow affair. Could you throw some light on how we could improve this? Because basically these students, they work, but the transfer takes time. So how could we, hasten this process?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Dr. Nupur. And in the earlier slide, I told that the farmers, they are very traditional and they do not want to go to advanced technologies, either because of some fear or something, or because of political interventions. Because when biotechnology lab to land concept came into existence, many of the local leaders or the people who were making politics on account of that, they were creating fear among farmers that no, don't go for this thing. They will spoil your soil. They will spoil your have this thing and that thing. Of course, one thing which was very dangerous, when Terminator seed technology came into existence, the farmers, they were largely harmed because the multinational companies who were producing these Terminator seeds, they provided seeds to the farmers and they were developed biotechnologically. And in those Terminator seeds, the gene used to work for one crop for 1 year, and the growth for 1 year was confined. And after that, that gene was automatically terminated. Means the farmers, they are in the habit of developing seeds from their own crop. Means if they are taking a crop, then 1/10 of the core crop is left behind, and they permit it to mature and develop seeds from it, and they collect those seeds for the next coming year. So those type of things were there, but the lab to land concept is, of course, government is focusing on it, and by 2022 the government has focused that the farmer income will be doubled. But we have to take the technology from lab to land, and for that agricultural scientists, they are working very hard so as to educate the farmers that these type of technologies should be adopted by farmers, so that much things are there. And everybody has witnessed that almost more than 1 year has been wasted in this Kisan Andolan. So the lab to land technology came to a standstill during entire period. So the practices which could not be implemented. The second thing is that the scientists, they are developing different types of technique in lab, and they should also take lead in rather popularizing it through different types of magazines, in local language magazines, in Hindi magazines, or in English magazines, so that they can reach to masses and they can read it out and can utilize those techniques.
Right. So I'll just club two questions together here. One talks about the effectiveness of bioherbicides and biopesticides for improving growth of crops, health of crops. And the second is the adverse effects of transgenic plants if they are used as herbicide, fungicide. So how is it that we could use them? We could use bioherbicide, and pesticides. At the same time, how could these transgenic plants ill effects also be avoided?
As far as transgenic plants are concerned, it is like this: if we are having fever, then we have to take paracetamol. If we are having COVID infection, or to prevent COVID infection, we have to take vaccine. If we want to fight against polio, we have to take polio drops, or to give polio drops to our children. Likewise, say we are having crops, and these crops, every year the farmers, they suffer losses because of some bites, some insects, some termites, some different types of insects, or different types of pathogens. So if we develop, if we introduce a gene which make a plant which is resistant to pest, which is resistant to insect, which is resistant to moth, then we can get a very healthy plant. So there is no harm in consuming transgenic plants, one thing. From my point of view, of course, there may be a different school of thought who may oppose it. Second thing, that the biopesticide and bioherbicides, they are never harmful because they are the natural products. As we were talking about, that these products are developed from the natural things which are appearing in nature, which are developing in nature. But of course, the chemical pesticides, chemical herbicides, they are going to not only harm the soil and losing its fertility, they are also going, because they will leach down, they will percolate down into the soil, and ultimately the drinking water which we are consuming from the down table of the soil, that is also having the effect of pesticide and herbicide. There was one village near Meerut where the entire village was suffering from different types of cancers because of the groundwater consumption through hand pump. And there is a village in Himachal Pradesh where they use a particular type of seed of this nut, and none of them, for many years, none of them is suffering from cancer. So like almond, there are different types of seeds. which they keep on consuming. They store them, they make its powder and mix it with the wheat flour and consume, and there is no cancer. And here near Meerut, the entire village is suffering from cancer. So these pesticides and herbicides, they are going to harm a large, and the next generation is will be facing a lot.
So this takes me to the next question, which is also related, that how do you think the water recharge is going to be affected if we have more of these GM plants which are utilized? So will there be an effect on the water recharge which is there?
Yes, why not? If we are making, because what is the source of water? Rainfall. There is no other source. You cannot generate water artificially as on today in India. So we have to depend on the rainwater. Every institute under NAC, you might have seen that it is mandatory for every institute to develop a water harvesting plant. So water harvesting means we are recharging the soil. At earlier days, when we used to drill a hand pump, say about 4 or 5 feet deep, then we were getting water. Then we are drilling hand pump at about 10 feet, even then we are not getting water. Then we have to drill it to 100 feet, then the water will be there at 100 feet, and that too will be polluted. So what is happening? The soil water conditions, or the water which is present under the soil, is reducing day by day, because the water table is going down and down. And ultimately the time will come, then we shall not be having any water to drink, and we shall not be having any water to irrigate. So it is very important that the soil should be recharged. Say for example, if I am thirsty, then how can I recharge myself? I will take a glass of water and will be recharged. Means I will get water into my body and the cells will be recharged. Because as a biochemist, Dr. Nupur might be knowing that there is a particular percentage of water at which biochemical activities of a cell survive or can take place. All biochemical activities of living cells, they require at least 70% of water. If the amount of water reduces by this percent, then ultimately the people, they suffer from dehydration, the cells start plasmolizing, they start dying, and finally what happens? There is the ultimate death of an individual. So we have to understand that what is the role of water. So everywhere we have to a proper recharge, either soil or our body or the animal body or the soil flora or soil fauna or our plants which we are getting around, which are giving us oxygen. So for everything, water recharge is very important.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. We really feel honored to have listened to your insights explaining the green revolution as well as the gene revolution, and the information that you have shared with us today on biodiesel, aeroponics as well as transgenics, I'm sure has broadened the horizon of our knowledge. There are many questions still, but because of paucity of time, what we will do is that we'll try to mail you these questions so that they can be answered over email, and then we will, right? So yeah, so thank you so much, sir. Once again, on behalf of Department of Biochemistry and my personal behalf, thank you so much for sharing with us your knowledge, for taking out time and for answering all these questions. It's a pleasure. It had been a pleasure to have you back after 2016, and I hope we continue this association in the future as well. Thank you, sir.
Sure, I am always available. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.